Science and Technology, YMCA Faridabad. I, Kuldeep Singh, most welcome our today's expert, Professor Surjit Singh Chauhan. Professor Surjit Singh Chauhan is presently working as Director Science, Chandigarh University, Chandigarh. He has teaching and research experience of over 21 years. He has published over 90 papers in journals and conferences of national and international repute. Professor S.S. Chauhan has supervised 13 PhD students and 1 MPhil student. His areas of specialization include fixed point theory, operation research, numerical analysis, engineering mathematics, and complex analysis. So not wasting much time, once again, I most welcome. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Kuldeep, sir. Thank you very much for nice introduction. So, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. So, thank you very much. So, first of all, I convey my sincere thanks to the organizing team of this university, especially the Department of Mathematics, HOD, other faculty members, and Dr. Parveen also, who contacted me for this expert talk. So it is a good opportunity, I would say, to interact with students and to have interaction with faculty member also, and to know about your university and to know about your department also. So I have given this responsibility for 2 particular theorem of complex analysis. So I will try, although it is a different mode, to deliver the lecture through this online medium, but still I would like to give my best. So thank you very much again, Dr. Kuldeep. So now I begin with my slides. I am sharing my screen. Are you able to see?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
It is visible?
Yes, sir.
Give me 1 minute, please. Okay. So as Dr. Kuldeep has discussed, this is an expert talk on argument principle and process theorem. So it is an important part of the complex analysis. And before my expert talk, because according to the schedule, I am the last one who is delivering this lecture for this 2-day conference. Okay. So after my lecture, there will be a valedictory function definitely. So I will bind myself according to time. So first of all, myself, Professor S.S. Chauhan, I am working in Chandigarh University here for the last 10 years before the establishment of this university. So some glimpses of my university. First of all, I would like to give you some glimpses of my university here. So the vision of Chandigarh University is to be globally recognized as a center of excellence for research, innovation, entrepreneurship, disseminating knowledge by providing inspirational learning to produce professional leaders for serving the society. So our core values of Chandigarh Universities are human dignity, respect for all human beings, treating fairly and being inclusive. Then empathy, which is very, very important part of the society or the humanity, I would say, exhibiting sensibility to other plight, exhibit solidarity with action. Humility, modesty in success, and openness to learn. Then giving, which is very important for every human being. contributing to society, nation, and family, sharing knowledge to create a more enlightened and purposeful society. So these are the 4 core values of Chandigarh University. Our Chancellor, Sardar Satnam Singh Ji Sandhu, he is a founder chairman of Chandigarh Group of Colleges, known as CGC, established in 2001. He is honored with UN Ambassador nomination for Sustainable Development Growth, Top Edupreneur of the Country Award presented by MHRD. His contribution toward the society by running a university with new age academics, transforming careers of more than 25,000 students for getting placed top-notch companies. He is a chairman of APSI Educational Program Society for India, Northwest Region. He is regional vice chair, ASSOCHAM, National Education Council. He is very modest. His upbringing is from rural of Punjab. He has adopted rural schools which are being provided regular academic, infrastructural, and financial support. Now, accreditation and ranking of Chandigarh University. Sorry, it will take 5 minutes, but it is very important for me because I belong to this renowned university. So every one of you must know about this university. So Chandigarh University in 2019 is the got NAC A+, is the youngest and the only private university in India to be assessed and accredited by NAC with A+ grade in the first cycle itself. In 2020, ranked 52 in All India University ranking, ranked 61 in management, ranked 84 in engineering. In 2020 again, first university to receive diamond rating in all primary categories. First university to receive diamond rating in Punjab. In 2020, ranked number 1 as an academic institution to file the highest number of patents in information technology in India. Ranked number 1 as a single institution in filing the highest number of patents in India. In 21, it was NBA accredited for civil, electrical, ECE, mechanical, engineering, and MBA. In 2022, ranked 7 among the top private institutions in India in the Atal Ranking Institution on Innovation Achievements. According to the week 2021, ranked number 1, Chandigarh University ranked number 1 as multidisciplinary emerging university in India, and ranked number 2 as a private multidisciplinary university in North Zone. In 2021, it was ranked number 1 as institute to offer online degree in India 2021 by HR Association India. 2020 received Platinum Award Institute category at CII MILCA Award 2020 National Award for Academia. In 2021, among private universities in India for the past 3 years, it ranked number 1 in the filing as well as publishing the highest number of patents, and ranked number 3 to have granted the highest number of patents India today, 2021. By Outlook, ranked number 8 among private institutions for architecture, India's best college ranking 2021. In Limca Book of Records 2017, highest number of companies for placement by Limca Book of Records. By Career 360, Chandigarh University for Engineering rated 4-time A Career 360 21. Universal Institute of Engineering and Technology, Mohali rated AAA Career 360 in 21. India Today, UIE ranked, UIE means University Institute of Engineering, ranked 16 among the top 25 emerging colleges in the country. Again in 2020, among top private engineering college in the country. Similarly, business management by India Today ranked 59th among top college in the country for offering world-class BBA. Ranked 5th among the top private emerging B school in India. Hotel management by India Today ranked second among top college offering best value for money. By The Week ranked 7th among private hotel management colleges in India. Again, by India Today 25th among top colleges in the country by India Today. Now, QS University ranking Asia, overall ranking of Chandigarh University is 271 to 280. QS iGauge Platinum subject rating in journalism and media studies, law and legal studies. In Chandigarh University, there are number of various programs in which UG programs are 59 and PG programs are 56. It caters the need of engineering, management, computing, architecture, pharma, biotechnology, medical lab technology, optometry, physiotherapy, forensic science, agricultural science, tourism and hospitality management, law, media studies, education, applied health sciences, liberal arts and humanities, nursing, film and visual arts, doctoral programs and physical education. In Chandigarh University, we have students from all 28 states, all 8 union territories, and 46 foreign countries. 84% students from other states and countries. Now, faculty diversity, 700 plus PhD faculty and 350 plus pursuing PhD, renowned faculty drawn from prestigious institutions, IITs, NITs, IIMs, and abroad. 7,000 plus publication in Web of Sciences, Scopus, UGC, and more. 1,300 plus Scopus publication in 2018 itself. Faculty skill enhancement via development program conducted by national and international subject matter experts. See, we have the faculty from 23 states and 2 union territories. 45.5% are female faculty members here. Now, in research, as I discussed with you, 1,273 plus patent filed successfully so far. Grants 345 million from DST, NSTD, B, CSIR, SERB, MNRE. 50 plus departmental research groups, 7,000 plus research publication, consultancy in Indian rupees 41 million plus in engineering, management and sciences and other part of the university. Now I come to the University Institute of Sciences, which I deal here. It was established in 2013. We offer various programs, bachelor, master and PhD. We have 5 programs: BSc non-medical, BSc honors physics, mathematics, BSc honors chemistry, BSc CSM, computer science, statistics and mathematics. Also, we have PG courses: MSc mathematics, MSc physics, MSc chemistry, MSc data science, MSc statistics, MSc industrial chemistry. We also offer PhD in math, physics and chemistry. So this is all about my university and my institute. So now I begin with the much weighted complex number. So I start with first slide, how complex number came into existence. See, when we were in the schools, we were adding some numbers, we were subtracting some numbers. We learned the operation 3 minus 4 cannot be done using natural number. Okay. So we were playing with the natural number, but we were not able to do 3 minus 4 because we were getting -1. So then there were integers. Okay. Later you learn the square root of -1 does not exist because we faced this problem. So because see, we were playing with real numbers then when we got this problem. So for this particular problem, when we were not able to find the square root of -1, a new number came into existence, and that is known as complex number. Okay, so you can see through this pictorial form, the innermost part is natural number. Then we include 0 there, we get the whole number. Then we get the minus numbers along with these whole number. Then it becomes integer. Then we get the rational number, a bigger group or bigger set, I would say. Then rational plus irrational, it becomes real number. And then we have complex number. Now, in complex number, there is a terminology imaginary. Okay. So can anybody tell me why we use this imaginary word? Why we use this imaginary word? Yes. Why we use this imaginary word? See, suppose if I take a sphere having sides iota and iota, okay, because we can find the area of a sphere. A, if side is A, other side will be A, the area will be A square. Okay. But if I take the side iota of a square, then what will be the area? Iota square. And what is iota square? Iota square will give you -1. Then we can say that area of any sphere cannot be -1. So this is an imaginary number we are assuming. Okay, iota. Okay, so that's why we call it imaginary. Okay, because we cannot find the area of a sphere having side iota. Okay, how complex number came into existence? There is a history of the complex number also. You know that nature is built from complex number, and complex number form the complex function. See the sequence. Complex number form the complex function. Okay. Now, complex function form the differential equation. And you know that differential equation is very, very important for the natural law. Okay. See, you will find so many real life example where the differential equation are used. We are using differential equations. Okay. So how the differential equations are formed? With the help of complex function, and complex functions from complex number. So it is very, very important to study the complex analysis. You can see the picture of fractal produced by iterating holomorphic functions. Okay. When you do the iteration, you get a very beautiful picture of the complex number. Okay. So I have given 2 examples to you. So it is very, very important to play with or to study the complex numbers and complex functions. Now, although I think my previous experts have discussed with you the history of complex number, but before coming to the main 2 theorems, because I would like to give some idea about the history of complex number to you. So this is Raphael Bombelli, 1526 to 1572, Italian mathematician. He authored one algebra of set 3 books. He introduced the notion for -1 square root and calls it Pi-ud-Mino. The discussion of the cubics in one algebra follows Cardano, but now the casus irreducibility belief is fully discussed. Bombelli considered the equation x cube is equal to 15x plus 4, for which the Cardan formula gives x is equal to cube root of 2 plus square root of minus 121 plus cube root of 2 minus square root of minus 121. Okay. Then he observed that cubic has x is equal to 4 as a solution, and then proceed to explain the expression given by the Cardan formula as another expression for x is equal to 4 as follow. What he wrote? He wrote cube root of 2 plus square root of minus 121 as a plus iota b, from which he deduces cube root of 2 minus square root of minus 121 as a minus b iota or iota b. So he gave these two values as a plus iota b and a minus iota b. And after algebraic multiplication, we can get the value a is equal to 2 and b is equal to 1. Thus, x is equal to a plus iota b plus a minus iota b is equal to 2a is equal to 4. So x is equal to 4. Imagine x is equal to 4 can be expressed in the form of complex number. Okay, a plus iota b, a minus iota b, and you can see here a plus iota b has some value, a minus b iota b has some value. Okay, so this was the expression given by Italian mathematician. Then René Descartes, you have heard the name because all of us are the student of mathematics. From 1596 to 1650 was a philosopher whose work La Geometrie include his application of algebra to geometry, from which we now have Cartesian geometry. Descartes was pressed by his friend to publish his idea, and he wrote a treatise on science under the title Discours de la méthode pour bien conduire sa raison et chercher l'average denseless science. 3 appendices to this work were La Dioptrique, Les Méthodes, La Géométrie. The treatise was published at Leiden in 1637. Descartes associated imaginary number with geometric impossibility. This can be seen from the geometric construction used to solve the equation z square is equal to az minus b square, with a and b to both positive. Okay, so according to Descartes, for any equation one can imagine as many roots as its degree would suggest, but in many cases no quantity exists which correspond to what one imagines. So he gave some idea about this complex number also. Then John Wallis noted in algebra that negative number so long viewed with suspicions by mathematicians had a perfectly good physical explanation based on a line with 0 mark, and positive number being number at a distance from the 0 point to the right side. Okay, we have now this time we have Cartesian plane, so we can see there is origin, there is a positive number on the right side. Okay, so this idea was given by John Wallis. Okay, where negative numbers are at a distance to the left of 0. Also, he made some progress at giving geometrical interpretation of square root of -1. Then Abraham de Moivre, we study this theorem, left France to seek religious refuge in London at 18 years of age. There he befriended Newton. In 1698, he mentions that Newton knew as early as 1676 of an equivalent expression to what is today known as De Moivre's theorem. Cos theta plus iota sin theta raised to power n is equal to cos n theta plus iota sin n theta, where n is an integer. Apparently, Newton used this formula to compute the cubic root that appear in Cardan formula. In the irreducible case, De Moivre knew and used the formula that bear his name, as it is clear from his writing, although he did not write it out explicitly. So these are some historical fact. Now we have heard the name of Euler. Euler introduced the notion iota is equal to square root of -1 and visualize complex number as points with rectangular coordinates, but did not give a satisfactory foundation for complex number. Euler used the formula x plus iota y is equal to r. Sometimes we call it polar form, r cos theta plus iota sin theta, and visualize the roots of z raised to power n is equal to 1 as vertices of a regular polygon. He defined the complex exponential and proved that identity e iota theta is equal to cos theta plus iota sin theta. And we use this e iota theta is equal to cos theta plus iota sin theta in our complex number or complex analysis. Then Caspar Wessels, a Norwegian, was the first one to obtain and publish a suitable presentation of a complex number. In 1797, Wessel presented his paper on the analytic representation of direction, an attempt, to the Royal Danish Academy of Sciences. The paper was published in the Academy's Memories of 1799. Its quality was judged to be so high that it was the first paper to be accepted for publication by non-member of the Academy. Wessel's paper written in Danish went unnoticed until 1897 when it was unearthed by an antiquarian and its significance recognized by Danish mathematician Sophus Christian Juel. Wessel's approaches used what we today call vector. He uses the geometric addition of vector, parallelogram law, and defined multiplication of vector in terms of what we call today adding the polar angle and multiplying the magnitudes. Then Jean-Robert Argand was a Parisian bookkeeper. It is not known whether he had mathematical training. Argand produced a pamphlet in 1806 run by a private press in small print. He failed to include his name in the title page. The title was Essay on Geometrical Interpretation of Imaginary Quantities. One copy ended up in the hands of a mathematician. So that's why his name is here. You know the name Legendre, who is done mentioned in a letter to Francois Franciès, a professor of mathematics. When Franciès died, he inherited his paper to his brother Jacques, who was a professor of military art and a mathematician. He found Legendre's letter describing Argand's mathematical results, but Legendre failed to mention Argand. Jacques published an article in 1813 in the Annales de Mathematiques giving the basic of complex number. In the last paragraph of the paper, Jacques acknowledged his debt to Legendre's letter and asked the unknown author to come forward. Argand learned of this and his reply appeared in the next issue of the journal. Hamilton, you have heard the name of Hamilton. So he defined addition and multiplication of couples. Ordered pair A, B plus ordered pair pair C, D. How we can add A plus C, B plus D. So he gave this addition and multiplication properties. These, in fact, the algebraic definition of complex number. Then Gauss. You know that we study so many theorems. There are indications that Gauss had been in possession of the geometric representation of complex numbers since 1796, but it went unpublished till 1831. When he submitted his idea to Royal Society of Göttingen, Gauss introduced the term complex number. If this subject has hitherto been considered from wrong viewpoint and thus developed in mystery and surrounded by darkness, it is largely as unsuitable terminology, which should be blamed. Had plus square root or minus square root instead of being called positive, negative, and imaginary unity been given the name, say, the direct, inverse, and lateral unity, there would be hardly have been any scope for such obscurity. In 1811 letter to Bessel, Gauss mentioned that theorem was to be known later as Cauchy's theorem. You study Cauchy theorem, or I think this Cauchy integral formula was a part of your this workshop also. This went unpublished and was later rediscovered by Cauchy and Weierstrass. So again, Cauchy initiated complex function theory in 1814, submitted to French Academia des Sciences. The term analytic function was not mentioned in his memoir, but the concept is there. He published in this paper was published in 1825. Contour integral appear in this paper, but this is not first apparently. Poisson had a 1820 paper with a path note on the real line. Cauchy constructed a set of complex number in 1847. So we now see this is the history of complex number. A good number of mathematicians gave the research, and that's why this particular direction of the number is able to flourish so far. So now I come to some real life application of the complex number. So I think there are students also. I am just going through the various application, real life application as well as mathematical application of the complex number. Although it is not part of my lecture, but I thought that these things should be discussed with students. Okay, this history and then some application. Then I will come to the main theorem. See, there are various applications of complex number in digital communication, computer science, image processing. The complex number are being used, sound waves in music, then electrical engineering, electromagnetic waves and oscillations. It is relevant to control theory also. If I go to physics, there is an electrostatic subject which is very important and where the complex number is being used. The optical potential in quantum mechanics and nuclear physics are example of theories that employ complex numbers. Okay, so another important application of complex analysis is in string theory, which examine conformal invariant in quantum field theory. So these are a few applications I have mentioned here in this slide. There are various more applications existing in real life where the complex analysis is being used. So now I come to, because some of you are PG students, some of you are UG students. So there are various mathematical applications. Okay, you have gone through contour integrations. So method of contour integration to evaluate difficult definite integral. For the contour integration, we use complex analysis. Lively's theorem lead to one of the standard proof of fundamental theorem of algebra. Studying the Riemann zeta function is an important way to understand the primes. It leads to the prime number theorem, the Riemann hypothesis, and more generally to major part of analytic number theory, because it is very, very important. We study analytic number theory. Modular form are important in mathematics for several reasons, some of which can be found here in modular form, a computational approach versus 0.1 documentation. Elliptic functions are closely related both to the study of elliptic curves and the study of modular forms, where the complex functions are being used. You have heard the name theta functions are related to both elliptic function and modular form, but they are also have other applications. For example, they can be used to prove both Fermat's theorem on sum of two square and Lagrange's four square theorem. Analytic continuation leads naturally to the study of Riemann surfaces, which in turn a gateway to many other beautiful parts of mathematics, including but not limited to Galileo's theory algebraic geometry, algebraic topology, hyperbolic geometry, then teach Mueller spaces, then string theory, and so on. Complex analysis is being used in analytic combinatoric to analyze the asymptotic behavior of combinatorially defined sequences. Complex analysis has several applications to study of Banach algebra of function analysis. For example, holomorphic function calculus. Fourier transform involves complex analysis. Complex analysis can be useful in solving Laplace equation in 2 dimensions. Theory of conformal mapping has many physical applications and is also used throughout the analytic number theory. In modern time, it has become very popular through a new boost from a complex dynamics and the picture of fractal produced by iterating holomorphic function. In the beginning, there was one slide where 2 pictures were given of the fractals that was produced by iterating holomorphic functions. And you can find a number of such beautiful pictures using the complex number. We use the iteration work there. Okay. So now I come to see, this is the basics history of complex number, then some application, real life applications, or you can say application in other field, then especially mathematical applications of complex numbers. Now I come to this argument principle. Actually, you have studied zeros of a function in complex number and poles of a function also. My previous experts might have been discussed with you that what is poles, what is zeros, what is residue. So I have given this duty that I have to give some proof of these argument principle and Ross's theory. Here some basic terminologies are being used, that is zero, pole. Okay, you know that when you put fz is equal to 0, you get the values of z. These are known as zeros of the function. Okay, when you have, see, there is a term singularities, and various kind of singularities are being are there. Okay, there can be a pole, isolated singularity can be there, removable singularity can be there. Okay, so here I will be using some basic terminology. The basic, it is very simple argument principle, that let a function fz is analytic within and on a closed contour C. On a closed contour C. So see here, fz is analytic within and on a closed contour C having n0 inside C. Okay, so I want to use sorry for 1 minute. Okay, so you can see here that fz is analytic within and on a closed contour C. Suppose you have a closed contour C. Okay, so fz is analytic within and on closed contour C having n0 inside C but no 0 on C. We are discussing about only zeros, n0 inside C but no 0 on C. Then n is equal to 1/2 pi del C argument fz. Okay, where del C argument fz denote the variation in the value of argument fz as z moves around C, as z move around C. Okay, the value of argument fz will be changed accordingly as z moves around here. Okay, so our target is we need to find that this number of zero are 1 upon 2 pi del C argument fz when this condition is being satisfied by any function fz. Now see, there are only two conditions. Fz is analytic within and on closed contour C. Second condition, having n zero inside C, but no zero on C. Two conditions. If you find these two conditions for any function, then number of zeros will be given by this formula. Okay, 1 upon 2 pi del C argument fz. Okay, so it is very easy to prove this formula. But before proving this formula, we need one result which is very, very important, and I am giving that particular result. What is that particular result? If fz is analytic within and on a closed contour C, except a finite number of poles. Okay, so suppose there are some poles. If I take these dotted point at poles inside C, okay, these are finite. If fz is analytic within and on closed contour C except a finite number of poles and is not zero on C. On C means boundary. Boundary, I can say curly C, del C. Okay, so on the boundary of C, then what is the formula? Formula is 1 upon 2 pi iota integral f dash z fz dz is equal to n minus p, where n is the number of zero and p is the number of poles inside C. Okay, n is the number of, here n is the number of zero, p is the number of poles. These dotted point I consider as poles. Okay, so there are few there n is the number of zero inside C. So zero as well as poles are there in this closed contour C. Okay, so if this condition is satisfied, then 1 upon 2 pi iota integral f dash z upon fz dz given by n minus p. Okay, now you can imagine what is the statement of argument principle. You can see in this statement there is no pole. Here in this statement there is pole also. So if there is no pole in the statement of argument principle, so we can put this pole is equal to 0. Number of poles, because function is analytic within and on closed contour C. There is no pole inside C. So that means in this formula we will put P is equal to 0. Okay. So now come to the then main proof. So from that formula particular, I have taken this 1 upon 2 pi iota integral f dash z upon fz dz is equal to n minus p. I have used that particular formula. Just I was saying to you, because there is no pole inside that closed contour, so we can put p is equal to 0. So it is mentioned here. If the function has n zeros but no poles inside C, then we can put p is equal to 0 in number 1. So it becomes this value. Now cross multiply, you can say n is equal to 1 upon 2 pi iota integral f dash z upon fz dz. Similarly, because this is function this and f dash z its derivative, so we can apply the integration formula. We get log fz. Okay, because it is C here, it should be C because closed contour is there. Okay, so now we can say that there is one property of log fz. Okay, Now you can see yes, where del C denote the variation of log Z as Z moves around the closed contour C. Okay. Now from there you can write del C means you can write here 1 upon 2 pi iota del C log Fz. You can write del C means, because there is no particular definite value will vary along the closed contour, so we can write del C, variation in C. Okay, so I come to this point where del C denote the variation of log Fz as Z moves around the closed contour C. Okay, as Z will move around the closed contour C, the value of log Fz will also vary. So from trigonometry, you are aware, because we were using this log Fz there. So we can write, okay, in the simple complex number, when you take log Fz, it becomes log of Fz modulus plus iota argument Fz. So just by putting the value there, okay, you can write it. I am putting here this value. Okay, whatever I have received after simplification, this, okay, using the trigonometry, I can use this value. Now 2 can be written like this. Now you can multiply this iota and this iota will be cancelled out. You will get this real part and this imaginary part. On the left side, it is only the real part. By equating real part only, this n comes to equal to this. Okay. So one thing, it is del C should be there. Okay. When we multiply here, it is del C. Okay. So formula is n is equal to 1 upon 2 pi del C argument Fz. Okay. So n means number of zeros inside C. Number of zeros inside C. Got my point? So when there is a function Fz which is analytic inside C, so you need to find the number of zeros, and that comes to be 1 upon 2 pi del C argument Fz. Okay, this is the argument principle, which is very, very simple. Very, very simple. I have used just simple calculations. Okay, one main formula which is being used here is this one. Okay, 1 upon 2 pi iota integral. This is closed f dash z upon fz dz is equal to n minus t. Okay. So using this formula, now we have proved argument principle. And argument principle, now what is the conclusion of argument principle? It tells us how many zeros are there inside C, closed contour C. This is the formula. Okay. So now I come to Ross's theorem. Again, see, it is very, very important. If Fz and Gz are analytic inside and on a simple closed curve C. Okay, there are two functions now. There are two functions now, Fz and Gz. Fz and Gz. Okay, so sorry, 1 minute. So there are two functions, Fz and Gz, which are analytic inside and on a simple closed curve C, and the second condition is GZ modulus is less than FZ modulus on C. Okay, two conditions. Sorry. So first of all, we must know what are the conditions of this theorem. There are two functions. There are two functions which are analytic inside and on a simple closed curve C. Okay. And second condition is GZ modulus is less than FZ modulus on C. Okay. This is second condition for this theorem. Then there are two functions GZ plus FZ, and FZ have the same number of 0 inside C. Okay, this is the conclusion of this theorem. First, there are two conditions, FZ and GZ. There should be two functions which are analytic inside and on a simple closed curve C. Second condition is GZ modulus is less than FZ modulus on C. Okay, then both the function GZ plus FZ and FZ have the same number of 0 inside C. So we are going to prove this. It is very easy. Okay, so see this condition from this GZ, it is given to us. See, this condition is given to us. So from here, I can find this GZ mod upon FZ modulus is less than 1 on this C. Now, if I have this value, it is less than 1, then it is very much clear that denominator should not be 0. Okay, FZ is not equal to 0. Then what happens if FZ is 0? It will become infinity. Otherwise, if FZ becomes 0, then GZ upon FZ modulus will become infinity and it will not be less than 1. Then this condition cannot be satisfied. So therefore, FZ should not be equal to 0. First thing. Okay. Now, here GZ plus FZ modulus. Okay. You know that it is strictly greater than FZ modulus minus GZ modulus. Okay, and it is not equal to 0. Why it is not equal to 0? Because this condition is given to us, FZ modulus minus GZ modulus. It is greater than 0. FZ modulus minus GZ modulus. It is greater than 0. So it cannot be 0. So what we have proved two things here, which is very important. FZ modulus not equal to 0. And FZ plus GZ modulus, it should be FZ modulus, FZ plus GZ modulus not equal to 0. Okay, we have proved this. FZ, it should be like this, FZ plus GZ modulus, it is not equal to 0. Okay. This thing as we have proved, FZ plus GZ modulus not equal to 0. Okay. So neither FZ nor FZ plus GZ has a 0 on C. Okay. You know that when we find the 0 of a function, when it comes to be 0, equal to 0. But in both the cases, we are saying that neither FZ modulus not equal to 0 nor FZ plus GZ modulus not equal to 0. So we can say that there is no 0 on C. Okay, first thing we have proved, there is no 0 on C. Okay, so now if there is no 0 on the boundary of C, then what happens now? See, if N1 and N2 are the number of 0 inside C. Now I am discussing about number of zeros inside C. Earlier we have proved that there is no 0 for both the function on the boundary of C. Okay, so if N1 and N2 are the number of zeros inside C, then FZ plus GZ modulus and FZ respectively, then by argument principle. You have done now argument principle. Okay, what was the statement? Argument principle gives the number of zeros. Okay, argument principle give the number of zeros inside C. Because now I am saying n1 and n2 are the number of zeros inside C. So by that particular formula, n1 can be written as 1 upon 2 pi del C argument f plus z. N2 can be written as 1 upon 2 pi del C argument f. Okay. So now simple calculation, subtract this n1 minus n2. So you will get 1 upon 2 pi del C argument f plus g minus 1 upon 2 pi del C argument f. Okay. Now simple again calculation. I have taken 1 upon 2 pi outside. Now just simple simplification. I have just taken f common. Okay. Simple apply the properties of argument. So argument del C argument f will be cancelled with minus del C argument f. You will be having only this 1 upon 2 pi del C argument f1 plus g upon f. Okay. So now let us consider this 1 plus g upon f as w. Okay. Now you know that it is given to us. It is given to us g modulus less than f modulus. Then this particular point, see, now to understand these lines, this point w is 1 plus something. Okay. Always lies inside the circle with center w is equal to 1. You can consider like this. Okay. This is the center 1. W is equal to 1. Okay. So definitely this 1 plus g upon f will, this value lies on the right side of this. Sorry, this is 1. Okay. So this w always lies inside the circle with center w is equal to 1 and radius unity, so that this circle lies to the right of imaginary axis. This circle will totally lies to the right of imaginary axis. Therefore, line joining any point of this circle. Okay, you can take any point on this circle. Okay, to the origin makes angle phi. Okay, if you take any point, it makes angle phi here with real axis and lies between, because it is right on the right side, you know that it is minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. Okay. So the this particular point will lie on the right side of this imaginary axis. Hence, argument w minus argument 1 plus gf always lies between this side. It follows that argument 1 plus gf return to its original value when z describes C. See, circle was on the right side. It is C was on the right side. So if z moves like this way, the always you will get the same value minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. Okay. So that means it returns to original value when z describes C. Since argument 1 plus gf cannot increase or decrease by a multiple of 2 pi, which implies that change in C, del C argument 1 plus gf is equal to 0. That is, change in argument of 1 plus g upon f is 0. Okay. So if I get this value 0, so if you look this equation, see, if you put here 0, okay, it becomes 0. So what is on the left side? N1 minus N2. So it becomes N1 minus N2 is equal to 0. That means number of zeros for f and number of zeros for second functions will have the same number of 0 inside this. Okay. So we were considering N1 zeros and N2 zero, and we have proved that these zeros are same for both the functions. So this is the main theorem. only two analytic functions are there inside the simple closed curve C, and this property is being given to you. Okay, so this is the main result of this theorem. If you see, if we can see one example which is very easy. Okay, I want to apply, suppose this Ross's theorem. Suppose you have proved that all the roots of z raised to power 7 minus 5 z raised to power 3 plus 12 is equal to 0 lies between the circle z modulus is equal to 1 and z modulus is equal to 2. Okay, so let C1 be the circle, z modulus is equal to 1, and C2 be the circle, z modulus is equal to 2. Okay, the given polynomial is given to us, so it is very simple. Consider the circle first C1. C1 is z modulus is equal to 1, center 0, radius 1. So we need to define two functions first, fz and gz. So I am taking fz is equal to 12 and gz is equal to z raised to power 7 minus 5 into z raised to power 3. So first of all, because both are, one is constant polynomial, second is simple polynomial. So you know that both the function are analytic within and on this unit circle C1. Now we need to find, first condition is satisfy of Ross's theorem. Fz and Gz should be analytic within and on C1. Okay. Now I want to find Gz upon Fz. So you can put the value, and you can put the value z modulus is equal to 1. That means see here, Gz upon Fz can be written like in this form. It is less than or equal to z modulus raised to power 7 plus minus 5 z raised to power cube upon 12. Now you can put z modulus is equal to 1. You will find that it is 6 by 12. It is half. Your condition is satisfied. Two conditions were there in the Ross's theorem, that Fz and Gz should be analytic within and on C, closed contour C. We are taking C1 here. And second condition, it should be like this, Gz modulus less than Fz modulus. So both the conditions are satisfied. Hence by Ross's theorem, Fz, that means this has the same number of 0 inside C1 as Fz is equal to 12. But Fz has no 0. So all the zeros you can say for the functions inside C. Now consider the circle C2, z modulus is equal to 2. Fz is equal to z raised to power 7, Gz is equal to 12 minus 5 z raised to power cube. Clearly, again, polynomial functions, so analytic within and on C2. Okay. So again, check the condition like this. Okay, you can check here. You can put the value. So again, condition is satisfied. Hence, by Ross's theorem, same number of zeros as Fz. But all the 7 zeros lie inside this. Hence, all the 7 zeros of this Fz plus z will also lie inside this. Hence, all the roots of the equation lie inside this. Okay, but outside z modulus is equal to 1, all the roots given equations. So I think it is all from my side, two theorems, one example. I think example is also clear to student. Yes, I think this is the right time. I have to stop. So thank you very much from my side. Whatever I could do, I have done. I wanted to actually write, I discussed with Dr. Parveen, but actually time is different. So I have used the slides only.
Thank you so much, sir, for your lecture.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So should I stop?
Yes, sir, we have time for the valedictory session.
Sorry for any delay from my side. Thank you.
No, sir, it's okay.
No, sir, it's okay. Perfectly okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
मनु, हाँ जी डॉक्टर मनु। कुलदीप, उन्होंने चौहान सर ने मीटिंग लीव कर दी क्या?
यस मैम।
अरे वैलिडिक्टरी में रहना था ना उनको। वैलिडिक्टरी में रहना था उनको। चलो एनीवे। हाँ जी मनु, आप बोलेंगे कुछ या मैं करूँ स्टार्ट? ओके।
Actually, I was not co-host, so I was not able to unmute myself.
ओके ओके ओके, सेम प्रॉब्लम मेरे साथ थी। चल।
So here we are on the completion of the 2 days workshop on recent trends in complex analysis, sponsored by Haryana State Council for Science, Innovation and Technology, sponsored by Haryana State Council of Science and Technology, which was held from 9th February to 10th February. Now I request Professor Neetu Gupta to propose the vote of thanks of the program.
Thank you, Dr. Manu. First of all, I thank all the eminent speakers. First, Dr. Anuradha Gupta, Professor R.C. Mittal, Dr. Sushil Kumar, and Professor S.S. Chauhan, who have taken time out from their busy schedule and shared their expertise with us. I thank all the participants who participated in this workshop, and my best wishes are with all of you. And I hope this workshop met the expectations of the students to learn the basic understanding of complex analysis. And I'm sure that the participants will be benefited by the workshop. And I would like to congratulate the coordinators, especially Dr. Manu Rohila and Dr. Praveen Kumar, all the faculty members and students organizing team, Srishti, Dipakshi, and Lalit, and I think many more students are involved in this organizing team for making this event a great success. Last but not least, I thank all the participants for showing their interest in this workshop. I once again thank you everyone for making this program successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I request all of you to please turn on your camera to capture the memory of this event.
And if any student want to share feedback, then also welcome.
I think they will not be able to unmute themselves.
Okay.
You can, chat box will give you the right.
Okay. Yes, students, please raise your hands.
They can write in chat box so we can unmute them.
Yeah.
Arun. Akib, make Arun as co-host.
Yes. Arun. Yes, Arun.
Arun, are you able to unmute yourself? You are a co-host now. You can unmute yourself.
Okay. Any other student? Yes, no one?
Ma'am, I don't think so that anyone is there because no one else has raised his or her hand.
Yes, students, please.
You can even write in the chat box also if you want to say something.
No, okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
ma'am,
let us
continue.
just turn on your camera so that we can capture a memory of this event.
ये स्टूडेंट्स, जो स्टूडेंट्स कैमरा ऑन नहीं करेगा उन्हें सर्टिफिकेट्स नहीं मिलेंगे. ओके, इसलिए हरी आप फटाफट से सब कैमरा ऑन करो अपना. कोई किसी को सर्टिफिकेट भी नहीं चाहिए. एक स्वप्निल को सर्टिफिकेट मिलेगा एंड एक
हिमांशी को.
यस, हाँ 2 स्टूडेंट्स हैं. ओके, अंकित इज ऑल्सो, या श्याम. यस, गुड, वेरी गुड. दीपक, प्रदीप, या. Yes, yes, yeah. Yes, yes, other students, please. Yeah, Parul भी आ गई स्क्रीन पे. Yes.